What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sunbelt Syndicate, the Round Ball Roundup edition. I know Ben has been wanting us to put it out to vote. I feel like I should have waited until basketball season got rolling along, so I haven't done it quite yet. Although this week might have been a good time. We got at least one big victory. Were you watching the game last night where the upset occurred?
I watched like some of the beginning and then I fell asleep, took a nap.
Yeah. I don't blame you, man. Lately during the week is all work. Like you said, you're in finals now, working through one currently, so we won't keep you too terribly long tonight. But yeah, I've been falling asleep way early the last couple days because I've been staying awake like Monday through Thursday till 1, 2, maybe 3 in the morning sometimes. It's not smart for a man who's almost 40. So, we'll have to see if we can rectify that situation. But yeah, I got to take in a game, so we'll definitely talk about that. And we've got our first commenter of the night from SBC Ref. Can we just fast forward to baseball season? Yeah, we will be there before you know it. I think February is going to be when we get rolling in baseball, and we'll have Seth and Marv back on for that show. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Trying to put something together a little special for the baseball season, as well as Zach and I continue to try and get you guys aware of what's been going on in Sunbelt basketball, because as we know now, football season will be wrapping up, right, Zach?
Yep. How many teams are in the bowl game? 8, I think.
8. Yep. 8 qualified and 8 got taken. Yep.
Only got like 2 weeks left before all those bowl games are done, and it's full force in the basketball season.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, a change of pace for someone whose team didn't do so well. Fingers pointed directly at myself. I am ready for something a little more exciting. I know App State just hired a coach today, so that was interesting to watch that press conference and hear what he had to say. But otherwise, I am full force going into basketball. Obviously, we will still bring you along on the football stuff as well as we get into bowl season. But Zach, you've been good other than the workload as finals week is kind of taking over your life?
Yeah, I mean, I got 2 wisdom teeth coming in, so it's been causing me some pain lately. But other than that, everything else is fine.
If an older guy can give you a little piece of advice, do not wait until you're in your mid-30s to get them removed, because that was not fun.
Yeah, I'll probably after this winter break, when I get back down here, because I'm going home in a few days. So after I get back down here, I'll probably go to the dentist and get them removed.
Smart man. Do it while you're young and you recover faster. Trust me. That will work to your benefit later in life. I mean, they said I couldn't blow my nose for like a month. It was ridiculous. I was like, nah, not going through that. And Tyler, our resident Troy Trojan fan, says, hoops, baby. Yeah, so we are moving right along through basketball season, and we are going to give credit to the Red Wolves as they had the biggest win so far in the Sun Belt season, this young season. This picture here is actually from the game against Alabama. I didn't find any big photos against the win against Memphis just yet. I mean, I'm sure they're on Instagram and stuff, but on our little Imagine website that we use for some pictures, there wasn't any good ones from the recent game. So, if Memphis photographers were there, maybe that makes sense. Tyler's got some bad medical advice. If they grow in naturally, it's just pulled teeth. I had 2 pulled last year at 30. Nothing to it. Well, 30 and 37, I think, is when I got it done. It must be a big difference between those two then too.
I mean, they all affect everyone differently too. So
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I would say that the drugs they put you on when you left there, I wasn't in much of any pain. I couldn't talk well and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't really in pain. But the next day, that's when you started to feel the pain. And I got the prescription painkillers, never touched them. I took some like ibuprofen to kind of stay away from that stuff. I wasn't really scared of what I'd, get into with those, but, I've heard horror stories. So I was doing my best to stay away from the hard drugs and did so. Didn't get to eat a whole lot of fun stuff because it was all jello and soft, but you get through it and you just continue to go along. So Zach, good luck with that. Again, you'll probably recover vastly better than Tyler and myself did, but Tyler seems to not be too bad off from it. So, all right, enough of the teeth talk. let's get into the standings as they look thus far. Obviously, still yet to play any conference games that will be not too close to around the corner, but not too far away. The Red Wolves, obviously, are sitting up there in first. Well, maybe not obviously. We'll take a look at how these teams have done since the last time we went live, Zach. From what you saw out of that game, real quick, what was the thing that maybe stuck out to you in the early part, anyway?
I mean, I didn't obviously I wasn't really paying attention. It was kind of just background noise while I was doing some work. But I listened to some people talk about it, and a lot of it was the work that Arkansas State did on the glass. I'm looking at right now 44 rebounds to 40, but they were a lot of people were surprised about Arkansas State's ability to get second chance points, hit and knock some threes down. Pinion had 5 of them, so just getting second chance opportunities and making them count.
Makes sense. I mean, work harder on the glass is going to do you wonders, right? This game was in Memphis, though, was it not?
Yeah.
Or was it at home?
Memphis.
It was Memphis. Okay, I figured it was. I mean, typically, not oftentimes ranked teams come to the Sun Belt for games, so I was thinking that. But I also see that Arkansas State is 5-0 at home and just 1-1 away from home. But obviously, that one win is now the best win. I guess what they're saying is the best win in program history.
I'd say. So. I mean, it's one of maybe the best win in recent Sun Belt history that I can think of.
Yeah, I guess because the Big Ten schools that JMU beat last year were not ranked, were they, when they beat them?
I mean, they went to Michigan State on opening night and got a big win, which was big, but Michigan State had a down year. I mean, App State beat Auburn last year, but they weren't – I don't think they were ranked as high as Memphis was. I know my freshman year, Coastal Carolina beat the absolute brakes off of South Carolina, but South Carolina wasn't that big of a threat that year either. So that I can remember, this is probably maybe one of the biggest wins Sunbelt's ever seen.
Yeah. Okay. So I did fact check it. Michigan State was number 4 when JMU beat them, actually. Now.
Yeah. Well, in retrospect, that was
yes.
not as good of a win as they would have thought.
Correct. Exactly what I was going to follow up with. You are correct. Once you saw how bad down Michigan State was, you realize that they should have never been number 4. We've seen that with football as well. Liberty, a prime example of being vastly overrated, especially this season. So interesting one. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Memphis is perennially there every year. So a big, great win for them. Texas State also sits there at 7-3 overall, just like the Red Wolves. So technically tied for first right now. Also undefeated at home with a 4-0 home record. They are streaking. We'll talk about this in a minute, but they have won 5 straight games now. App State, South Alabama, both sit at 6-3. The Trojans sit alone at 5-3. And then Georgia Southern and JMU sit there at 6-4. Marshall alone at 5-4, Southern Miss 4-4. We're playing a lot of 500 basketball right here, right? Coastal Carolina and Georgia State also 4-5. ODU and ULM sit at 3-7. And the shock that continues to just confound me personally is Louisiana sitting down there at just 1-8 right now. So are they as bad as the record, or are they playing some better competition? What you have single thing to point to for them?
I mean, as we keep saying, they lost their best player before the start of the year. And I mean, they haven't really recovered. I mean, I think they're as bad as their record shows, just because they're not playing it's not like they're playing crazy competition every single game. I mean, they lost by 11 to Louisiana Tech last night. So that's a team that they should either beat or be competitive with, and especially when they're at home. So,
yeah. That makes sense. Ben James joining the program saying, how about them Red Wolves? Yeah, definitely knew he was going to be celebrating that one. And as you can see, too, on the other side of this poll here, where ranked teams, we've only got one ranked win, and that's those guys now. So full credit to Arkansas State and the Red Wolves being the predicted first-place winner of this conference this year. They seem to be doing decently well. We'll get into a little bit of a surprise before this one. This past week and a half, really, since we went live last, Zach. But we're going to go through and do this, the look at the teams that way. So since we last saw the Cajuns in action, what was that? It was 2 days before Thanksgiving, I think, was our last episode for basketball. And the Cajuns have, again, continued to lose. 0-2. They lose by 1 to Nichols, which that has to is, I don't know. You think that's a bigger slap in the face than La Tech?
I mean, it definitely probably hurt more being that close to a win and then losing. But Nichols is a good team, but South Alabama went into their place this year and beat them. So, it's another game that they're definitely disappointed that they didn't win.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. I thought there was a guy who transferred to Nichols from Louisiana, but maybe I'm wrong in that. I'm not seeing a name that's sticking out to me right away, but I thought that was the case. Maybe not. Anyways, those are two in-state opponents, and Nichols is, for football anyways, that one AA school that you should kind of never lose to. So I'm sure they kind of feel the same way in basketball. Whether that's true or not, again, Nichols, I don't think they've been a bad program. Do you know anything much off Nichols off the top of your head?
I think they went to their conference championship game last year, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not like a terrible program.
Gotcha.
They're a team that kind of competes for their conference usually, or around the top.
Yeah, you are correct right now. In the Southland Conference, they've already played some conference games over there. So they are 2-0, tied for first technically with 2 other teams. But they are 6-4 overall, and they are on a 4-game win streak. So, yeah, I mean, not too shabby of a loss really when you look at it that way. I think maybe then you say La Tech may be the worst loss, like you said, 11 points in that one. So not the best start for the Cajuns, and I'm not sure it's going to get too much better unless they make a change possibly at head coach. And then we have the other Louisiana team. Again, Louisiana team's 0-4 since we've last done a show. They lose to Stephen F. Austin 68-60 and UT Arlington 84-70. UT Arlington, what'd you say? Arlington was still in the conference for like the first year once you became a student at Coastal?
Yeah, them and Little Rock were here my freshman year.
Gotcha. And I think they're kind of the same, right? They've still been pretty good since they've left here and done successfully wherever they ended up.
If I'm not mistaken, they haven't been it's like another one of the schools. They haven't been terrible, but they haven't made the tournament. I don't think, or competed for the conference championship game. So, I mean, it's kind of like how they were when they were here in the Sun Belt. They were always a solid program.
Yeah.
Not like super bad, not always really good, but
yeah. And I had to look up, they actually moved to the Western Athletic Conference. I don't even know many of the other schools that are in here, except I think that's Grand Canyon that's sitting at the top. Yeah, it's Grand Canyon. So that's probably the best known school other than them that's in that conference there. So interesting. Wasn't aware that was the conference they had gotten over to. But yeah, they are kind of middle of the pack in that one. I think they were like 4-4 and 4-5 overall, something like that in that one. So one of the ones ULM probably went into the game thinking they could possibly win there. So we'll have to see. Ben's got some notes on the Red Bulls. We'll go back to those notes once we get to them. But he does have some thoughts on Nichols. Nichols had a great baseball team and still until A-State took their coach. So interesting little bit of trivia there from Ben on the baseball side of things for the Red Wolves. Georgia State just 1-2. They've had some interesting matchups though. I mean, they beat Tulsa 74-71. They got hammered pretty good at Kentucky. Was that one on TV?
Yeah, I watched some of that, and I had a friend that was actually at that game because he's a Kentucky fan, and that game was actually a lot closer than that score says. They were down around 10, maybe single digits for most of that game until about 9 or 10 minutes left, and then Kentucky finally pulled away.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that was the Friday? I don't remember what was going on. That was when I was on vacation, so I definitely did not get to check that one out. No shame in that game then, right? I mean, Kentucky number 8, undefeated.
Now number 4, I think.
Oh, they did lose since then. You're right. I'm looking at I'm looking at the scores card from when they actually played, but you're right. They did go down to they lost to Clemson 70-66.
But then Yeah, and then they came back against Gonzaga. They were down 16 at half.
Jeez.
Without their starting point guard. Yeah, without their starting point guard.
Jeez. Interesting. And yeah, again, you think going over the century mark it's rough look to give up, but guess what? Kentucky's done it 4 times this year. In fact, I guess let me look back at that score against. No, they didn't hit it against either of the other 2 opponents. So yeah, they've gone over 104 times. So yeah, it looks rough, like you said, but maybe not as bad when you see it in an actual eye test. Did you get to see anything with the Kennesaw State? I'm sure that's a game they didn't really want to lose, being not too far away from each other there in that Atlanta suburbs. But 81-77, pretty close there.
Yeah, I watched the end of this game, actually. Georgia State had a lead. Kennesaw State came back. They were up, and then I think they were up 3. And with quite a bit of time left, I mean, under a minute, but quite a bit of time left, and Georgia State kind of got antsy and wanted to hit a 3, like really bad. So they were just trying to do everything to get a 3 when they could have easily just got a quick 2 and set up their defense and try trapping or fouling or play the foul game or something. But yeah, it's definitely one that they're disappointed in. And another thing, the fans really showed out for that one. The fans and the students. That was out of every single Georgia State game that I've seen, like either watched or highlights or clips on Twitter or whatever. That's the most packed I've ever seen, and the best environment I've seen Georgia State have since I've started watching them over the last few years. So shout out to them.
That's awesome. Good. Yeah, good for them. I know that they've got a newer arena. I like the setup of what I saw out of that one. I've not been to it yet, but I think it looks pretty good. And then I think you're going to have to keep reminding me at this early part of the season. Nutter was one of the guys you expected to be very good this year out of Georgia State. He looks like he was the leading scorer in 2 of these 3 games here, going for at least 20 points in the 2 of them. Is his game evolving, or do you just think he's kind of where you thought he would be?
I mean, yeah, he averaged, I think, like 17 or 18 at a MAC school last year, Northern Illinois, which is a pretty comparable league to the Sun Belt. So, and he was gaining attention from a lot of Power 5 schools in the transfer portal. So it's what I expected. Yeah, right around where he was averaging last year.
Nice. Yeah, and to note, he is currently number 2 in scoring average for the Sun Belt Conference. Miles Corey from South Alabama remains number 1. I believe he was number 1 last time we looked at that, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think so. It might have been Xavier Brown, I feel like, but because I feel like we said his name along with it. But
gotcha. Okay. Well, either way, we know he was up in that top 3 for sure. His name was all over a bunch of stuff. So interesting. Ben wants to know when the new poll for the basketball show is coming out. Yeah, we'll have to get to that. Like I said, wanted the momentum of basketball season to pick up before we looked at changing it just that. But we'll see how that goes. All right, Georgia Southern. Again, we had the Louisiana schools back-to-back. We got the Georgia schools back-to-back. So from Georgia State to Georgia Southern, just 1 and 2. I don't know. This was a little bit tougher of a look schedule-wise. You're at Drake and at VCU, so not too shabby of opponents there who are typically both very good in basketball. And then they played North Florida, which I would expect them to win more easily, but I don't know enough about North Florida. I don't know if you know more there, Zach, but they squeaked by in that one, 93-91 in overtime to get the victory in that one.
Yeah, so I mean, at Drake to start, I mean, their team, they won the Charleston Classic. They beat Vandy and they beat Miami, I think, and then they beat someone else to win that tournament. So, and that's probably maybe the best mid-major team out there right now. So that's a game that maybe you want to win, but I mean, it's pretty unlikely. And VCU is one of those teams that I think everyone knows is one of those perennial mid-major powerhouses, kind of that team that you'll see in the tournament pretty often, and they might get a few wins. So, I mean, they were big underdogs on the road there, lost big. And then, yeah, they probably wanted to win North Florida a little more comfortably, but I mean, at the end of the day, they got the win. And North Florida is another good team because they beat South Carolina and they beat another Power 5 school to start the year. So, I mean, that's 3 tough mid-major teams right there.
Okay. See, this is why I asked your expert opinion, because I know you're going to know some of these things off the top of your head. Yeah, they're sitting at 6-4, 3-1 at home. So yeah, they do look. North Florida does look like a pretty good basketball program, specifically this year. So it does the lack of consistency with their top scorer or their top scorers not having at least kind of closer to that 20-point mark more often. Is that kind of the concern there? Like they don't have one true leader. They're kind of spreading it out, or I don't know what maybe thoughts you may have just on a basis, not even necessarily about Georgia Southern, but do you want that one guy that consistently is always your top point getter? Or are you okay with seeing a number of different guys' names show up as we see here, Brown, Banks, and Douglas all kind of being the leading scorer in all 3 games?
I mean, I personally like to have like to watch a team or like to have a team where 1 or 2 guys are your main options, and those are the guys that get you a bucket. But I mean, we'll talk about a few more teams that are like this as well. Like they spread the ball around and have like 8 or 9 guys averaging between 7 and 12 points, and sometimes that works as well. So I mean, I guess it's just however you can get it done.
I like it. I just didn't know if you were one of those ones who likes that like focal point that you can trust with the ball in his hands, or if you're like, yeah, no, I like to have a number of guys who can get the job done, and it's okay if it's 5 different guys in 5 different games type of thing. I mean, I guess that shows your team roster balance is probably pretty good, I guess. But
yeah, I like the option where you got maybe one, like a big 3, so to say, where like 2 or 3 guys where on a given night, like those are going to be your 3 guys. And then you got a bunch of role players filling around them doing their jobs. But I mean, if you build your team the right way and your goal is to have maybe not one guy averaging 18, 19 points, but a bunch of guys averaging around 9 or 10. I mean, that can work too.
Yeah, I guess is the deeper you can make your bench, like you said, just grabbing a handful of points here and there when they're in, still gets you the victory, still gets you where you want to be. So good point. Well taken. Troy, just 500, didn't play too many games compared to some of the other teams. I guess not a lot of the ones here at the bottom got to play too many games, but they go just 1-1, a loss to Merrimack. I think that one's the shocker to me. I just didn't expect a loss to Merrimack of all things. I guess it's kind of the football equivalent to a pay game where you just expect to come in and
buy game. Yep.
Yeah, a buy game. There you go. But they did get the victory over Eastern Kentucky, so I feel like they rebounded well. Rigsby's the top point scorer in both of those. Anything on this Troy team? Maybe the surprise to Merrimack, or anything specific on the Trojans?
I mean, I'm definitely surprised that they lost to Merrimack. That's a game where they gotta win that. I mean, they should be winning that easily, but you got to find a way to win that no matter what. But I'm also a little surprised on Tatum Conaway. I picked him as my preseason Sunbelt Player of the Year, and he's not having that type of year yet. So we'll see if anything changes or if he's dealing with something or something like that. But that's a guy that I thought was going to be a lot better for them this year. But I mean, they're still looking fine.
Yeah. Still 4-3. Well, actually, I guess at this point, that's the old mark there. What are they now? But that the other thing that was surprising to me on that is the Trojan Turkey tip off. So like they're hosting not just this team on a one-off. Like this is a tournament that they're playing.
Yeah, like an MTE.
Yeah, just not a good look at all. But Troy is currently 5-3. I had to look that one back up. I had forgotten exactly where they were sitting at, but 5-3 in that one. So again, even with that bad loss, still looking okay in the early part of this season. So yeah, we'll see if Conaway can tune it up and warm up as the season gets going here. Okay, ODU, looks like I missed a game here, or included an extra one, but they are 1-2. It should say 1-2, not 1-1. Where they had a loss to Duquesne. Oh, that's why I did it. I shouldn't have included the Duquesne game because that was happened before we went live last time. So there's what it was. It should just be 1-1. They win versus William and Mary 88-83. Then go down to George Washington 78-70. I don't know. Is this ODU team impressing you anymore, or is the 1-1 probably what you'd expect out of those two games?
I mean, honestly, I expected them to lose both those games because we've seen William and Mary. They beat JMU, so they're a solid team. So I kind of maybe expect them to lose both. So going 1-1, that's a solid week for them. But growing pains. It's Mike Jones' first year. It's his first time as a college D1 head coach. So it's not going to happen right away.
Yeah, that makes sense. Looks like Durr Gordon is still leading the way pretty good. I think he's one of the top scorers. Is he up here? No, he's not as high up as I thought. So, but he has had a couple good games. Goes for 24 there against William and Mary. A large reason why they won that one. They had 4 guys in double figures in total. So that was obviously a really good thing for them in that one. And Walker has been their leading rebounder by kind of a large margin. So we'll see if he continues to get that done. My Swanton Roger pick of the rebound block machine in this conference has not lived up to my expectations. I lost the expectations early.
I think he's still top of the conference in blocks.
So he's still getting the blocks? Okay.
Last time I checked, he was.
Let me I can click on that while he is. So he is averaging 17 a game. Wow. Okay. So he's fine in the blocks.
Total.
Just the rebounds. Is it 17? Oh yeah.
Yeah. 17 a game would be absolutely absurd.
Okay. You know what it is? There's a little tiny dot in between
1.7.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 17 a game would be definitely like a national leader. My apologies.
I don't think he'd be in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, that's a good point. He transferred in from Maryland, right?
Yeah, with Mike Jones, I believe. Mike Jones was an assistant at Maryland.
That's right. Yep, that would make sense. He brought them all down. We're talking about that with football now. How many of these players? Mark had a thing. We won't get into football today, but he did say, are all the Marshall players transferring to USM? Well, if basketball is any indication, they will certainly grab some players down there for next season for football, as Mike Jones did with Swanton Roger there from the Terrapins. All right, the Herd, they just won the football championship, but only go 2-2 in basketball over the past week and a half. They alternated wins and losses. I think this is the same team that was alternating wins and losses beforehand, too, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like Marshall was that red, green type thing. And they've continued that here. But they did have a big game from Anna Chili Killen against Morehead State. And I think Morehead State's still pretty good, right? Aren't they kind of consistently toward the top of their conference over there?
Well, Preston Spradlin he left for JMU, so he's the new JMU coach. But if I'm not mistaken, they'll still be competing in their conference this year. They've been pretty solid.
He got at least one guy that he brought over with him.
He brought Mark Freeman, and then he brought Eddie Ricks as well, both starters.
Nice. That's a good haul there for those guys. But we'll go back to Marshall for now. And I was just looking at where Morehead State is right now. Actually, they're 2-0 at home, but they're only 3-6 overall. So maybe not as impressive of a victory as I thought it may be. But again, they may play a pretty good schedule starting out. I'm not sure on that. South Carolina State, not your toughest opponents. They beat them easily 82-53. Western Kentucky, I think they're pretty good in basketball, and that's a little bit of a rivalry here between WKU and Marshall. I know certainly on the football field and from past conference alignment, the Thundering Herd and the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky don't care for each other too much. So I'm sure they didn't appreciate losing that one 90-82 there.
Well, I know a lot of Sunbelt fans and Western Kentucky fans want the reunion of Sunbelt and Western Kentucky. So maybe if that happens, then maybe it's a little preview of future conference foes.
That would be That's one that I've heard a little bit about. Not as much excitement from some of the more Eastern teams who don't have any experience with Western Kentucky, other than Marshall, obviously. But I wouldn't hate it. I've heard some good things about their football facilities, and obviously they had a little run in the NCAA tournament somewhat recently, did they?
Yeah, they went to the tournament last year, and then their coach left for a Power 5 job. But
okay, of course. Of course, it always happens like that. Then saying basically the entire football team's transferring. Yeah. Well, when you have a championship football coach, sometimes those guys are going to want to follow him. And
or you could just be like Coastal and have the same coach, and your whole team still transfers.
True. It's a good point. Good point. And it's all about all kinds of different things nowadays. So we'll have to see what happens there. They did lose that last one there against UNC Wilmington this past Saturday. UNC Wilmington, I think, still doing pretty good off the start of this. They played a couple Sun Belt teams. I think they might have played App State in this
they did.
last week or week and a half. So we'll see them again. Now, Arkansas State being at the top of this conference, just having the victory over Memphis, number 16, as we can see here, 85-72, really isn't at the top for the last week and a half or so. So it's interesting. Beat Indiana State, lost to Rice and Hofstra before beating Jackson State only by 2 points before the big victory over Memphis. So with what they had done coming in, was the Memphis victory an even bigger surprise to you, or do you think that they stood a chance going into that one against the Tigers?
I still think they stood a chance just because they're so like I said, I've been listening to some people talk about this game, and they have a lot of Power 5 level talent on their team. Arkansas State does. So, and they're really athletic. They're really big. They're really long, especially for a team at this level. So, I think I know that especially the Jackson State one, only winning by 2. That one is that's maybe a little bit of a head scratcher, even though you won that game. But
right,
like Memphis, that's a massive win.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. It's I think probably when I saw it, I didn't think just because of recency bias on my part. Like I was like, okay, yeah, before the season started, I would have said they stood a great chance, but had coming into that, they were 2-2 on the week before on the week that we're talking about. I guess I should say it's a little bit over a week, but they were just 2-2 with not overly impressive wins. Like we said, they got that 2-point victory over Jackson State. Probably Indiana State was their biggest win before that Memphis one, because of what Indiana State has done in the past. I'm not sure if they're great this year, but the Rice and Hofstra losses were a little interesting to me and kind of surprised me. So, yeah, I wouldn't have picked them to win. I'll tell you that, which I'm glad they did. We definitely need a little bit more of those types of victories on the Sun Belt side of things, and especially from a team that was expected to finish atop of the conference. So it was good to see them get it for multitude of reasons. But yeah, it looks like Ford's been kind of one of their go-to guys in those games. Todd I feel like I saw his name even in the Memphis game, even though he doesn't appear to have been the top scorer in that one. Did he have a good game against Memphis last night? Or Sunday night, I guess I should say.
Let me check real quick. He did not. He had 17, but he was 4 for 19.
Yeah. Yeah, because you say like, oh, wow, he had 17 points. That's pretty good. But like you said, you look a little further, 4 for 19, not the greatest shooting percentage on the night. And Ford Jr. did not have a great night either. Didn't score any points, 0 for 5 from the field after being the top scorer in that game against Rice. So kind of interesting, but looks like Dominguez came off the bench and helped out.
Yeah,
with
they're deep
points.
Yeah, they're deep.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that they have over a lot of the other teams in this conference currently, I feel like.
I mean, there's some guys that didn't even play in that Memphis game that could easily be playing some good minutes at other Sun Belt schools.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Ben wants me to go back to his comment because it's a very good one for head coach Brian Hodgkin, who got a $5,000 bonus for a win over a ranked opponent. So, hey, I'll take $5,000 for a win, right? Oh man, we'll have to see if he continues to get more of those, it's going to be a struggle to get another ranked win because I don't think right now they have anybody left on their schedule who's going to be ranked any further. Speaking of ranked teams, one of them ones that was ranked a little bit last year, James Madison Dukes over the last week or so have a record of 2-1. Also played George Mason as an opponent that we already saw. What was that? Was it ODU who played George Mason? Who else played George Mason?
ODU played George Washington.
George Washington. Okay, maybe that's where I got confused. Okay. So they do lose 66-61 to George Mason, but they do get 2 victories over both ETSU and Utah Valley. I would certainly lean toward the ETSU victory, meaning more with Hutchins Everett being the high scorer in that one. What are you seeing that you think is sticking out to you about the Dukes so far this season? Not quite as good as last year to start with. That's without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean that's also, like we said, a little expected. New coach, new team, and coming off a massive year like that, you're not going to be as good, especially right away. But I've been impressed with Bryce Lindsey. It's a guy from Texas A&M who didn't really play much his freshman year, if I'm not mistaken, then redshirted last year because of injury. And he's coming here and he's coming off the bench and still, I believe he's their top scorer. So, that's a guy that has really shocked me that I did not expect, especially with the starting backcourt that they have with Freeman and Brown. I thought those would be the 2 guys, but Lindsey's come in and really made his presence felt.
Yeah, you are correct. I brought it up. He is averaging 14.2 points per game, which leads the team. Xavier Brown there at 13.9, Hutchins Everett at 11.6, and just behind him is Freeman at 11.5. Those 4 are the top scorers and the only 4 to average in the double digits. So very interesting that, like you said, he's the one who's coming in and taking control for the Dukes thus far. So we'll see if they can continue to pull that team closer together as they go along and maybe round into form something similar to last year and see what they can do. Certainly in the Sun Belt tournament, we'll see. As we know, everybody will make the tournament after that ridiculous-looking bracket. We need to cover that in this show, actually, because it's so crazy of a bracket. But
I mean, I like it, but that's a.
Well, yeah, I do like the craziness of it. I don't like the fact that.
Yeah, playing a game every day. If you start from if you're one of the worst teams and you somehow make it to the championship, you play every game for like a week straight. That's kind of tough, but it does reward regular season success much more.
That's true. I do like that aspect of it for sure. And the only thing I don't like you said, is if you do have a team that goes on a run and gets there, you've crushed them to try and continue on with playing that many games.
It's like back in their AAU days.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe some teams need that. We saw, again, 2 seasons ago, I think it was South Alabama who went on that run in the postseason tournament to get all the way to the championship game. Didn't quite win it. Cajuns won it that year and got the bid. But South Alabama did play in the very first game of that tournament and made it all the way to the championship game. So, some teams maybe play better under that pressure. All right. Your team, Coastal Carolina, 2-1 on the week, or just over a week. South Carolina Upstate, 73-51. Did you get to see that one? That was a home game, right?
Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, pretty balanced attack. It was a slow game, but I mean, as a Coastal fan, I liked it. But yeah, slow. Like kind of like Justin Gray's team, it's going to be a defensive game, so they're going to be pretty boring for most people. But I mean, you got to find a way to get a win, and they got a big one in that game.
Yeah. And then I was at the December 4th game there at Campbell. I did not realize how close Bowie's Creek is to my house. It's like right at an hour, almost exactly an hour. So I took off work just slightly early, got down there to take that game in. Very impressed with the facilities there at Campbell, by the way. Small school, private, small campus, but very, very nice. I mean, their basketball court, stadium, whatever, is like 20 years old now. But when you walk in there, you would not know that. I mean, it seems if someone told me it was 3 or 4 years old, I would have believed them. That's how nice a shape it is. And the setup, the way they've done it, you could tell there's time and effort put into it. But anyways, as far as the game aspect is concerned, this game was looking like it was going to be like a complete blowout at the half. And Zach, you didn't get to start watching this one until about halftime, right?
Yeah, I watched most of the second half.
Okay. And I forget exactly what the score was at the half. I thought it was going to show me this, but
They were
not. Oh,
it
yeah.
was-
26-17.
Yeah, and then they started the second half, and neither team could miss.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a very weird game. The Camels were atrocious in the first half, both with shooting and even really getting good looks. Coastal was playing pretty good defense, and Amenhauser was just dominant in the paint. The Camels did not have a single player that could compete with someone his size. Plain and simple. He could pretty much do whatever he wanted all night, and he made it look pretty easy. I was impressed with Mio in his game. I was also impressed a lot with Brown. He only had 13 minutes in the game, but when he was in, he was looking pretty good. And up until the last little bit of the game, he was perfect from the floor. Didn't get many looks. He was 1 for 1 from 3 and 1 and 2 from the floor overall. Did miss a free throw at the very, very end that could have kind of sealed it up a little bit. I guess if he would have hit that, he would have gotten the chance for the second one and made it a 3-point game. Camels did get a clean look at a 3 to win the game, and it was a decent shot, but Coastal comes up with the victory in that one, so it was an exciting game to be at. And then they traveled down to Winthrop after that and got beat 96-89. What did you see, if anything, on – was that an ESPN Plus game on that?
Yep. This is probably the game I was most impressed with Coastal over these 3 games, just because Winthrop wants to run up and down and be in a high scoring game like this, and we both know that Coastal, they want to be in a defensive game and in the 50s or low 60s, and Coastal was like, all right, you guys want to run, we'll run with you, and they put up with it. So and they were down 17, I think, early in the second half, and came back and had a lead with a few minutes left. Kind of let it slip out of their hands a little bit, but yeah, that was a game where it kind of impressed me. Like, they can play multiple different ways versus where I thought they were going to have to be a team where you're going to have to just hope and pray that you play in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah, but I saw that game on Wednesday night. I can attest, like, you were absolutely correct. You were telling me that as I'm sitting there at the scores table watching that game. Like, this is exactly where Gray wants this game type of thing. So, yeah, definitely slow it down, grind it out fashion. So, yeah, to see 96-89, a little bit of a surprise for a Coastal team that prefers the game a little bit slower, like kind of like a Virginia-esque type of thing, I guess, huh?
Yeah, that also might just be because their personnel that they have this year, but
true. It's a good point. App State, surprising to me, goes 3-1 since the last time we were live. They got victories over Sam Houston State, 66-63. So that one was rather close. They beat Colgate. I believe those were both actually the Wilmington game too. I believe was in that mini tournament, I guess that you could call it, that they had there. Is that? Forget the name.
NT. I forget.
Live Oak Bank Holiday Classic, longest name ever. Totally unnecessary to have something that long. But yeah, and I don't know. Most of these places like crown a winner, or do they just say, you had the best record, so you won the tournament type of thing?
I think like this one where it's just like 4 teams and they play round robin type of thing. They don't crown a winner. I think it's just They just play each other.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know if some of these places make a big deal about this stuff. I hadn't seen any that had, but I didn't know if any of that, give some trophy and, have some kind of banner on the floor when they win it or something like that. But anyway, they got 2 victories in a row, and it looked like they were going to be standing a pretty good chance coming in against Wilmington, but they lose that one ultimately 76-61. Huntley does match his game high between Colgate and UNC Wilmington. And let me bring this back up. Huntley is currently I got to get back to the scoring, the 5th leading scorer in the Sun Belt, averaging 14.7 points per game. So I did want to shout him out on that because I had noticed that stat coming in there. But yeah, I mean, nothing surprising here, I guess. My question to you is, maybe did you think that they would beat Sam Houston State? Because I think you would probably assume they would lose to Wilmington and beat the other two teams here.
Maybe a little bit closer in that Colgate game, just because Colgate's a team that's always competing for their league. It's going to probably be in the tournament. They have a coach that a lot of Power 5 schools have been wanting for the last several years, and so maybe pretty impressed by blowing them out like that. But also good to see Alonzo Dodd back. I mean, that's a guy that I've been talking about the last few shows, but
yes,
it's a guy coming into the season I thought was going to be a bigger piece just because they had so many unknowns, so many, like, especially in the backcourt with freshmen and like JUCO transfers, and he's kind of proven at the D1 level. And he's come in here the last few games and been fine. So,
yeah, and another guy that name has been thrown around more is Dior Connors, which I believe you mentioned his name as well, right?
Yeah, that's the guy that hit the buzzer beater against William and Mary.
Okay.
So, but
yeah, I thought he was a transfer, but he's not. He's just been on the.
He's a JUCO transfer.
Oh, he's
Dior
a JUCO.
Connors,
Okay, that's why they don't have it listed on there. Okay. So I was right, because I was like, I think he came in from somewhere, but then, our trusty ESPN app is only going to let us know so much. But yeah, this was a weird game too. Like, the starters, as they were listed, all went for like under 10 minutes, except for Colby. And then like a bunch of the bench players got a bunch of time. So interesting. But I mean, that's kind of expected, I guess, when you play somebody like Mid-Atlantic Christian. So hammered them like they should. It'll be interesting to see what happens in a game where they play some more actual competition. Ben wants to know if there's any power rankings. Zach is going to work on those. Again, this is a busy time for him as a student. So when he gets those out, he will push them on social, especially Twitter, and then I will do my part to share his stuff around in that aspect. All right, Southern Miss, even with the struggles that they've had, kicking somebody off the team, and it looks like may have been a decent move, or maybe they haven't played the toughest competition. We've got some good scoring going on for the Golden Eagles, and they've beaten Milwaukee and Alabama State successfully over the past week or so. Time is getting rid of a problem child on the roster, something that you think will now improve their outlook on the season?
I mean, potentially. Obviously we don't know what was happening with him, so we don't know why he's been suspended and like what really happened and if he was actually causing problems or whatever. So, but I mean, ever since he's been let go from the team, they've been just fine. So maybe it was the right move.
Yeah, it may have just been affecting the chemistry and how everybody played together. Like you said, we'll never probably know the true answers to that. And
I'm sure we'll probably know one day, just because social media, everything gets out nowadays.
True. That's a good point. Well, the one thing that I did see that you hate to see, because he was also my preseason pick for play of the year. So that's not going to happen now. I'm already wrong in that regard. Because I thought, I had seen enough out of him last year that he got hurt. I thought he'd come back bigger, better, stronger type of thing. Was not to be, but there was a lot of people saying that they'd seen this in his multiple stops before. So I guess not shocking.
He definitely has a personality to him. So
yes. So I guess it may have shined through a little too brightly here, but either way, looks like they're doing just fine without him, at least right now against their current schedule. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling again as they go 2-0 since the last time we talked about them. Another team that has been undefeated since then is the South Alabama Jaguars. Get by Alcorn State 74-65 in overtime. So they pulled away a little bit more in OT there. And they also beat Jacksonville State 76-74. Real consistent with the scores in that for South Alabama, getting 74 and 76 points in each of those contests. Again, Miles Corey continues to show out, going for 25 versus Alcorn State and really only 12 against Jacksonville State, but was still the high score for the Jags in that one. Got anything on the Jags of South Alabama for this one, Zach?
I mean, I'm a little shocked at that Jacksonville State win. That's a good team with a guy that is averaging like 20 a game and that can pretty much get a bucket whenever he wants. So I mean, going in there, I'm pretty sure they shut them down a little bit, and getting that win, that's an impressive win to me.
Nice. Yeah. They had some guys come off the bench that went for double figures, and some guys got real close with the double figures that were starting. Broom being one of those. I think that's a name that you had mentioned a couple times, right, before the season got started. He was he a JUCO transfer as well?
No, he's a redshirt freshman. He redshirted last year.
Gotcha. Okay. Look at that. You know, you have to consult notes. You just knew that off the top of your head. Impressive.
I knew that because last year I was kind of expecting him to be a big piece, and I noticed he never played, so kind of that's kind of stuck in my head a little bit.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right, Texas State, another undefeated team since we last spoke about them. They were 3-0 in that time. Beat Texas Southern 72-59, Arlington Baptist, which again, not much of a competition there. They beat them 97-49, and then they take care of Rice 75-66. 3 different high point scorers for Texas State. Are they more of maybe a well-rounded team than we thought coming into the season?
I mean, potentially, yeah, but that's a team that to start the year they were missing a ton of pieces, and I mean a ton of pieces. And I know they got Colton Benson back a few games ago. And then, some other guys are still out, but been pretty impressed, especially before Benson got back, just because they were so thin. They were playing like 7 guys, and they're still pulling off wins. And this is a team that I maybe underestimate a little bit. I kind of had them like mid to low pack, but I mean they're right back there. Terrence Johnson's a great coach, so. He's got them guys right where he wants them.
Yeah, and it was interesting this last game against Rice there. Gums, who's been up there and is the 7th leading scorer in the conference, only goes for 7 points, just 1 for 8 from the field. But otherwise has been one of the more consistent players for the Bobcats. But like you said, now they've got some guys returning, stepping up. Morgan goes for 20 in that one there, specifically the high point getter against Rice, but they had 4 guys total in double figures in that one. So an impressive game there for the Texas State Bobcats as they look to get back towards some Sun Belt supremacy there. All right, these are the power rankings as Zach last had them. So we will see what he does. Again, this is week 3. By the time we get him, I guess that'll be week 5, right? By the time we...
Well, yeah, week 4/5. I'll probably just include all of the games from the last 2 weeks.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, there's a look at them there to see where they end up. We can, again, consult the arrows when we see this again. But, yeah, I think that's I'd say that's going to move around quite a bit for you. You got some work to do. Did you already kind of have some of it sorted out? Or?
Well, I kind of had a little bit from week 4, and then I kind of just completely forgot about it. And then it was like last Friday or something, and I was just like, I kind of already have this week's games in mind, so like I don't want to be any bias or whatever. So kind of just been holding off. But I mean, yeah, there definitely is some movement, but I would say, I mean, there's still some consistency, I would say.
Gotcha. I'd say there's definitely a few spots. I think the Cajuns will still stay down there at the bottom, and probably ULM and ODU probably all kind of right with each other. I don't think a lot of those are going to move very far. So, yeah, that's be interesting to see where some of those go. And as we know, the reason we did this show tonight is because there was no games tonight, which was kind of making it easy for us to kind of cover everything up to this point. Now we get rolling again tomorrow. We got some interesting matchups. One that's going to be very exciting, which is Troy going to a ranked Houston team. That one's going to be tough though, right, Zach? I mean, there's any chance that Troy Springs upset there against Houston?
I mean, I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
That's a tough, rugged team that now this year is starting to score a lot too. So.
Yeah, that's a fast-paced offense there, is it not?
I think this year they're a little bit more fast-paced, but the last few years they've kind of just been one of those tough, rugged defensive teams. But they've, with injuries and just kind of the personnel they have, they've had to change it up a little bit.
Gotcha. And then, this isn't necessarily as big of a basketball rivalry as it is on the football field, but we do have Southern Miss going up against Tulane on Tuesday night as well. Those games are about 30 minutes apart, so you could probably catch a good portion of that Troy-Houston game before that next one gets started. And then we've got some, I don't know how many more real exciting games we have throughout this week before we get to the weekend, where App State takes on High Point. That one's in Greensboro, North Carolina, a neutral site game there. Texas State takes on FAU. That one I definitely have some interest in. Isn't FAU and FIU, I get mixed up all the time, but FAU is the one that's been really good in basketball last couple seasons, right?
Yeah, but they like most mid-majors, they have a new coach and a new team.
Gotcha. Well, we've got Charlotte matching up with Georgia State this Saturday. Southern Miss gets a shot at a ranked Ole Miss team, which was it Arkansas State?
They're hosting them too.
Ooh, that's good.
Looks like.
Nice. So that'll get the people going a little bit.
Or maybe it's a neutral site.
Hattiesburg. Let's see. See if I can pull it up.
Yeah, it looks like it's a neutral site.
Oh, Mississippi Coast Coliseum. Yeah, okay. But I bet you anything that's closer to Hattiesburg. So might be almost a de facto home game for Southern Miss, but I guess we'll have to see in that one. Marshall loves the old school rivalries, right? They matched up with Western Kentucky already. Now they're going to match up with Ohio this weekend.
And they play Wright State on Wednesday, another team in that area.
I skipped over that one. You're right.
That should be a solid one too.
I didn't really think about Wright State and where they were at when I saw that one. So yeah,
I saw some Wright State at the Myrtle Beach Invitational. They're a solid team.
Okay, so that'll be a good indicator of where we're sitting right now. So yeah, not every single night have there been really great matchups to watch, but again, every few nights there definitely is. So keep your eye out on the Sunbelt games as they come up on your radar. Be sure to take them in as football season is coming to a slow stop. The news cycle won't stop. Your favorite teams' players are all going to be jumbled up and moved around a little bit more, I'm sure. Zach, you got any final thoughts or notes to wrap us up with? Anything you want to cover before we end the show here?
No, not really. I think you guys have covered a lot. Football's kind of taking up all the news right now. Portal just opened, new coaches moving around everywhere, bowl games, but pretty soon it'll be for real college basketball season.
Yeah, and it'll be full speed by the time a lot of people start tuning this stuff on. That's why we've been doing this, to kind of keep everybody up to speed. Zach's been helping me, obviously, with, like he said, some of the coverage I've been doing. I haven't been able to watch as many games as I would like, trying to peek in here and there when I can. I know a lot of people are also doing that, so hopefully these episodes can help us all stay better informed. And we will continue to get this thing evolving and better along the way with the graphics and going over more detail. But with so many teams playing out of conference games, you got a whole lot more games. And once we get into the conference play, we can dive into 6 or 7 matchups a lot better than 18.
14, yeah.
Yeah. It seems like so many. But thank you guys all for tuning in, and we will check you guys out next time.